It's something I don't do on purpose. I don't show some parts of my life. I don't show how I've improved in some ways, because I know some of these people are watching. And they can watch, of course, feel free to watch, because it doesn't affect me usually. You're not in my life. But they watch to see how you're doing. And the reason why I don't do this, I don't show my improvements off, is because they become interested in you again. They want to have some kind of connection with you. They want to have some kind of friendship, family, anything. And this causes people to want to be around you again. But I don't want to be around them. So that's why I don't show any of that off. And pretty sure everyone's gone through it, where you speak to someone and you realize that they don't care. And that's what happened to me yesterday. Yesterday was like the breaking point of thinking about it. I'm feeling crushed. I'm feeling like I've lost the feelings and the care for this person, because my gut instinct was right that they didn't actually care. And it took me a month to realize. I was texting with my cousin, the person I'm talking about, and I shared personal information, about why I left, why I'm living by myself now. Not just because adults, I'm 25 years old, but because there were people around me that were bad. So the word that I mentioned with her is PDF. I can't really say it on YouTube, so maybe some of you understand what I'm saying. And this person was 14 years old. I sent just brief proofs, and they tried to take advantage of this person. And I was about 17 years old when I realized this. And I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to speak about it, didn't know what to do about it. And there's still family members, most of them, almost all of them, that don't know about this. And I think nobody knows who it is. I didn't tell anyone, except for one person. But that person knew for a very long time before me. So yeah, that was obviously something that was traumatizing me, because the seed of the problem is you manipulate and you try to take advantage of someone that is, say, 14 years old, for example. And it's pretty crazy. For me, it's crazy, 100%. That you don't have the remorse, you're not thoughtful, you couldn't care less about this person, you prioritize yourself. It was quite problematic for me, for sure. And so when I became a more mature age, these ages that I am currently, I've seen obviously much more things that have added to the kind of proof that I had of how somebody is and who someone is. And after a lot of thinking, a lot of different circumstances, blah blah blah, I made a final decision about this person. And that is one of the main reasons why I'm living alone. That's why I'm away from them. That's why I blocked some of them. And I made this clear to her. I made it clear to my cousin. And her response was quite careless. That's what I saw. And for example, this person is this family member, and you should forgive them, blah blah blah. Just that basically. And she didn't go much into detail of her opinions and stuff like that. The only opinion feedback that she gave is reaction that she gave is that it's horrendous, that it's unimaginable. It's a terrible thing, and that I should forgive that family member because none of us are perfect. And so that is the first part where I realized, okay, this person is toxic. This person doesn't care about both the situation, doesn't take it very seriously, even though they might say something from their mouth. Obviously their actions are presenting that they don't take it seriously. So they sent us voice messages of this basically, and they said that it's serious. Not that, they didn't explain why, of the brief stuff that I'm talking about, the brief explanations that she gave. And that's it. Fake concern. When you learn to spot that, it becomes better for you to know and better for you to because then you can, move in the maze. You know what to prioritize for yourself. And so you have to know what is authentic. You need to know what is genuine. You need to know who actually cares. You need to know who's actually worried, concerned about you or somebody else. You need to know this. And people's outlooks is very important as well. Whoever it is, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, anyone. And that's what happened. And so that was my gut instinct. That was one of the bad signs. And I also noticed that she's cold, as if she doesn't want to speak to me. Who are you? I don't really know you. We're cousins, but we haven't seen each other for a long time. So I don't really know you. I'm not gonna want to speak about this. And that's what really happened. She didn't. She barely texted back. There was barely any communication. And it left a sour taste in my mouth, and I made it clear what I'm thinking as much as possible. Just clear messages. And there is this sense of uneasiness in me. And so I asked her, why, are you busy or something? Would you prefer, we just chat normally on video call? And they're like, oh, I'm outside, I'm on holiday, and there's weak internet here. And it's just, the red flags are piling on. And this person just won't be honest, just won't be clear, just won't be transparent. So second part of the conversation, I criticized her. I criticized that she, in the past, the first time I ever criticized her, genuinely, dead serious. Not first time I ever criticized, but first time I've ever mentioned this to her. First time. In both text and in person, first time. And very briefly, literally, it was paragraphs, but 5 text messages on this topic. Just that's it. And that was in the past, because I was criticizing other people of why I left. That was the context. And this time it was of her. And I said, in the past, I remember when we were together, your dad was in a bad financial position, and you didn't really care about his position. You didn't really care about him having a hard time. He needs to take out a loan to pay for shoes, the shoes that you want, Timberlands, to pay for an iPhone when your dad is broke. What iPhone are you talking about? This bothered me. We were in the car and I noticed the pressure that her dad was in, and her dad didn't want to argue around me, and that was a massive red flag, massive red flag. If someone is feeling very anxious and they don't even want to argue around you, and they're just oh yeah, sure, darling, I will do that, and they're really soft speaking, that's trauma bonding. That's not really a real connection or anything. And it was father and daughter, so I believe they were trauma bonding. And she did not care. She was very, very ruthless of not caring whatsoever how somebody feels, what position they're in. They are the priority, and that was a previous red flag in the past. It happened before as well. Happened when I was 12 years old. Happened when I was 18, 19 years old. Yeah, and it happened under the scenes as well, when my family would talk about it, that I'm gonna bring in a product from here because it's £50 cheaper than if you were to buy in Turkey. And that's what was happening. There was a neglect. There was a lack of care to the person that you should be caring. Is your dad, for example. I haven't seen his dad do anything specifically wrong. She'd never mentioned it to me at all. So my guess is he hasn't. She's just taking advantage of it. And I criticized her openly, not as in I hate you, but as in this is one of the criticisms I want to give to you. This is what bothered me when I last saw you. And she didn't take it well, obviously. She didn't take it well. Up to that point. Everything else, oh yeah, of course we'll talk about that person, we'll talk about this person. Oh really, did they do that? That was really funny, I found that funny. Blah blah blah. About each of the cases of what somebody did. And I spoke about them to give context of what is going on. Why am I away, and why somebody is not to be trusted because of this reason. And why I've lost some connections, which I didn't mean to lose connections, but somebody has bad-mouthed me and spoken to me about things that are not true, or that are taken out of context, or that is very badly exaggerated. And I made it crystal clear what has happened and what doesn't exist whatsoever. So instead of debating and talking, just talk about whatever's fact and whatever is lie. So then everything is just clear. There is no sense of this person said this, but you said this, but that person has said this. Nah, none of that. None of this long back and forth. And so she didn't care. And the thing that was bothering me is she was pretending to care. There wasn't a clear, just be honest. It can be one sentence long, it can be 5 paragraphs long, just be honest. It's very easy. Just say, at the moment I don't care because I got a lot of things going on. Nothing. Nothing. And there's red flag on top of red flag. So 1 is not being honest. 2 is not being straightforward. There is straightforward talking, and there is being around the bush talking. 3 is being disingenuine. Okay, so there is honesty, no honesty, and then there is disingenuine. So you don't actually say your own true thoughts. So not being yourself. Only being yourself when it comes to the reactions. That's how I could tell that she's not being herself. Because when she had a reaction, she was herself. When there was no reaction, when it was kind of, I'm in the game, also let's call it a game, she wouldn't be herself because it's easy to perform. Fourth was that she wasn't like a family member with me, but yet continued to pretend as if playing that game. Fifth was how she acted with other people. Another red flag. Neglecting, not caring about somebody else's problems, their priorities, their conditions. That was another red flag. And so at this point, I'm realizing, okay, we got a chain here. We actually have like a proper pattern here. You know, because everybody has red flags, but this is like another one, another one, another one. And we're not even very close. It's really bad. It means the amount of red flags that you actually have are colossal if we are to be close. Yeah. So, and I think seven was that she couldn't take criticism. Massive red flag also. Somebody that has that level of immaturity, not being able to take criticism, is a very bad thing. And that was the first criticism I've gave to her. Seriously, like, no joke, just saying it as it is. First criticism. And not a criticism as you're broken, you're not worthy, you don't deserve this, you don't deserve that, you're this kind of person, that kind of person, bad person. No, just a criticism. And that was, not received well whatsoever. So that's another big red flag. Anybody that can't receive criticism is not mature. Very simple. Simple as. Clear as the skies. So after that point on is when her true face started coming out. And I say this, maybe I'm judging, maybe I'm being too fast, but she's stopped to reply to some messages. She's not even that. She started being extremely selective with what messages she replies to. Rather than before, she would just, whatever message was last sent, so it would be like 5 hours later, 6 hours later, she would respond to whatever message was there. Now she's very selective. And when she got mad, she said, "How dare you speak about me like that? You don't know me, you just pretend you do, you have a childish mind and you criticize everybody, you know." And of course it made me think like, is she right? You know, am I actually going around criticizing people? How far have I gone? You know, do I actually go around criticizing people, or is it because of the context? Is it because I'm talking to my cousin and my cousin hasn't seen me for a very long time? And you know, the saying goes, the past is the past, but you need to also acknowledge the past. So if in the past I was cheating on people, let's say, for example, I was cheating on my dad, I was cheating on my girlfriend. You know, I took my dad's credit card, I spent recklessly, and I cheated on my girlfriend 5 years ago, whatnot, let's say. Then wouldn't me having to acknowledge that, in acknowledging the past of those behaviors, wouldn't that be very, very important now, today? It would be. And that's not what happened. There was no acknowledgement, serious to God. And then afterwards, there was like acknowledgement that she did behave in that manner. Because I mean, the proof is in the pudding, is what I would say. It's very clear. So instead, she said, as if you guys don't spend a lot as well. You know, me, the other cousins, they spend so much money. They're very lucky that they live in Europe and this kind of countries like the UK, and we spend recklessly, and we do this, we do that. So she was spoiled without having the position to be spoiled. You don't have the position. You know? So if you get spoiled, but your mum's earning some ridiculous amount of money, government's giving you crazy money, then does that necessarily mean that you're spoiled? Nah, you're just spending something that you've gotten. Your spoil is unnecessarily getting stuff. That's one. And getting things that you don't deserve or you don't have. Spoil. So if nobody around you really has a really hard time financially, let's say, you're not really being so spoiled, because then it's not really affecting anyone. That's what it is, the kind of queen behaviour that you got going on, and she doesn't acknowledge it whatsoever. It doesn't exist. As far as she's concerned, it's kind of in my mind that she was behaving like queen.